the sonographer, as she was quite experienced, she just put the scan onto my stomach and her face dropped. And I was like, oh, she says, I've never seen anything like this. And I was like, oh. And she went, I need to just call somebody else in.
I would like to firstly say thank you for coming on to share your story with Saima. And you wanted to share your story, didn't you, about ovarian cancer?
Yes, ovarian cancer. Yes, we need a lot more awareness of the early signs of ovarian cancer, and for everybody out there to hear it and also to know about the importance. Basically, it's like any cancer, of course, to catch it early, and the actual oncologist and all the professionals can do something and help you, but it's just the fact of sharing that. Yes, I'd like to do that.
Brilliant. I mean, that's the aim of the show, where we want to educate people on different various topics, and of course get people to share their stories to help others. So as far as I can remember, you've had your little one.
Yes.
So you gave birth to baby Catherine?
I did, yes, I did. 16 months ago now, about November in 2019, yes.
Was the pregnancy okay? Birth?
Absolutely. She was an elective cesarean section. That's only because my previous I had a previous emergency cesarean section, and I didn't want those kind of complications coming again, and with my age and everything, so we chose for an elective, and it was a beautiful birth. She was born all calm and relaxed. Oh no, we need the light on, I think. Yeah. Obviously my partner was there, which in COVID, it was all before COVID, and it was absolutely lovely. I recovered really well. The cesarean section went really well. And just the only thing really, because she was born a little bit, she was born at 38 weeks. So, and she had a little bit of jaundice, so we had to do some light therapy, but the actual pregnancy and the birth was fantastic, Saima. Yeah, it was all great. Yeah.
Did you start getting any kind of symptoms or alarm bells?
Yeah, so I was breastfeeding Catherine. I was in heaven. I had a beautiful little girl. She was growing and bubbling. And then when she was about 6 months, we started to introduce formula feeds and things like that. So she started slowly coming off the breast. So this is now May in 2020. And I noticed when I was breastfeeding her, I was losing my baby, like my baby tummy, which is quite common with breastfeeding, and that was fine, and I was noticing that. So when I stopped breastfeeding, or it started to decline, I noticed just a bit of a stomach coming back again, a bit of a jelly tummy, and I was like, oh, okay, just changing slightly my body. Then when I stopped breastfeeding altogether, it only lasted, she was weaning off slowly for about 3 weeks. So this is now the end of May, and I don't know, I just went really big, and to the point where I was wearing like my maternity clothes again, elasticated waist and ballooning and feeling just flumpy and feeling very like tired. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't feel right. This was it. Catherine was thriving. She was carrying on with formula and then carrying on with solid foods as well. We started weaning her as well at that time. She was doing fantastic. So I went to the doctors and I just explained I wasn't in major pain, but it just wasn't right. So he gave me a blood test, and it came back okay. This is now in the June of 2020. So I'm like, oh, okay, right. He just said my calcium's a little bit low and probably just, look after myself for a little bit or drink more. Or anyway, so I went okay and tucked away and just left it. So that was June. And then I did start to get pain, back pain, stomach pain, and it just I couldn't explain. I have got pictures because I have got images of my stomach before the operation. And I went to the doctors again. He had a prod and a feel, and yes, okay. My bowel movements were changing a little bit as well, and I was thinking this isn't right. And he put it down to IBS. He gave me Buscopan, which is like an irritable bowel treatment. I was like, I've never had this before. Okay, I'll go away with it, but I was in pain, and then this is now coming into July, August, and then September, I was really struggling going to the toilet to the point where, I had to cry. I was crying near enough. I couldn't sleep properly. I was on one side and my stomach was just ballooning. And my partner just went, I'll come with you because I don't know what to say. I'll just come with you and tell them what I'm seeing you as, even though you're telling them. So I went to the doctors again in August and I said, look, I'm taking the Buscopan. It's still not working. I'm not at ease. And he felt and prodded and I started to cry because I think I was just so tired. I was still having Catherine. And my partner was just like explaining everything. And when you're talking to the doctor, you forget as well sometimes. And he was just saying how at night time when Catherine, I was wriggling on the floor in the lounge, just trying to ease the pain in my back and doing some like yoga stretches and things. And he was explaining, and I went, oh yeah, I do that, and it was just from the other side. Anyway, the doctor said, oh, he could feel a few bumps, he said, or could feel something. He said, I'll just send you for a scan, ultrasound and see what's going on. So I went, oh, okay, thank you. Thanks for listening. Should I just keep talking about the whole thing?
You carry on.
Yeah. So still didn't know anything then. Still was just thinking, great, somebody's coming, listened and I'm not well. I started using Cocodamol. He prescribed me Cocodamol and I was just taking those. That was easing the pain, but I was probably taking, 8 a day kind of maximum up. Got a scan through pretty quick. Did really well within a couple of weeks. A CT, not an ultrasound scan, one external one with, had like pregnancy. Oh, went in, had a full bladder, laid down, and the sonographer, as she was quite experienced, she just put the scan onto my stomach and her face dropped. And I was like, oh, she says, I've never seen anything like this. And I was like, oh. And she went, I need to just call somebody else in. So she just was so natural, you know what I mean? You could say unprofessional, but she was just shocked. Anyway, another lady came in and I was like, what is it? Where is it? And what they saw was 2 ovaries that were both very enlarged to the point where they were pushing all my internal organs up, like under my rib cage. I had one cyst. Well, I know you can't imagine this because one cyst was like 16 centimeters on the ovary, and then the other one was 10. So the whole mass of everything within my abdomen area was like 30 centimeters worth of cysts on my ovary. My stomach was my main one. My stomach was up near my rib cage, and my bowel was stuck behind. All my internal organs were just squished and squashed. And this side in particular, my left side, that's where all my pain was, and that's where the cyst was coming up onto my side. So they said they couldn't see anything sinister at the time. They just seen 2 very large cysts. So I went, okay, cried because I was like, thank you, so it's not right. Thank you. Yeah, it was, bless her. And the other lady went back into her room and my lady stayed with me, and I just went, I'm just so relieved. I said, whatever will come of this. And she just went, gosh, I can't believe it, how nobody's seen this, or how they've grown so big and what have they done. And I don't think it's been long. I can only put it to the time when I stopped breastfeeding Catherine. I think that's anyway. So she kept me on this fast track path of like, yeah, now you need a CT scan and an MRI, and your whole body needs like scanning. So they went off, and they did. They came back within a week. You know, I can't grumble at all about the whole thing. I was under a consultant at the Leicester General Hospital. So they got letters, and I got called through and read through all of those. They confirmed, obviously, the 2 cysts, and said, really, the only thing we do is surgery. We need to, and it can't be a keyhole surgery because they're too big. He suggested, well, he told me basically that they have to come out, both ovaries have to come out, both fallopian tubes, because the ovaries were hanging on them, and possibly my womb. And I'm like, well, if it needs to, obviously, it needs to come out. And he was saying the only way to do it literally was like the open surgery. So from my chest bone right down to my pubic bone, under general anaesthetic, and it'll be a major op. Basically, we need to get you sorted. So signed all the forms, okay. Obviously, I couldn't live with these, and his big concern was it rupturing. And obviously, then it's an emergency and everything panicked. So he said, we need to get you in. And he did, called me in. So at the time, cancer obviously is in your head, because I think any surgery, or, you know, you think, oh, but I wasn't going for that. I was going to remove these cysts that were on my ovaries and that had grown to just a gigantic size. And you hear of stories, I've seen of them, but still didn't think much more of it. So I wasn't aware of ovarian cancer, you know, it wasn't there. Anyway, so surgery happened, successful, fantastic. I stayed 3 days at the General Hospital, 3 nights, 50 odd staples all the way down my stomach. Yeah. But they were happy. But what he did say is that he sent off for some biopsies in my ovaries, just to make sure they were clear, and also the lining of my stomach, my bowel. He sent off lots of little bits, basically, and he gave me a hysterectomy, which is the removal of my womb. That had to go. The fallopian tubes and the ovaries, and I did keep my bowel because I was fitted for a stoma bag, which is a bag that hangs outside your stomach.
Right.
Thankfully, that wasn't needed. He managed to clear everything out. So I left the hospital, kind of, we're on the road now of recovery, we're okay. I was due to come back to work. This was beginning of December when the surgery happened. Due to go back to work beginning of January, you know, start the new year. It's been a major surgery, but they found it successful. I can recover, and, you know, we're okay. These cysts have all, and everything's gone. Everything's all been cleared out, and I'm, you know, feeling a lot better. So the 21st of December, just before Christmas, we got a call to go and see him. And we're like, oh, he wasn't going to ask me to come back in. He was just going to send me a letter and discharge me. But we got called in. So we're like, okay, cringing a little bit, not really wanting to hear what he was going to say. Called us in and said that the biopsies have come back, and it was stage 1 ovarian cancer in the ovaries, but it had stretched to my fallopian tube. So we're looking at stage 2. So yeah, so the floor just fell. Partner just crying. I've got a little baby, you know, just 12 months old, 13 months old when we got told cancer diagnosis. So he did say he was happy with the surgery. He feels everything's gone out, you know, he can't say it's not travelled elsewhere because it's gone to my fallopian tube, but he was happy enough, you know, with the surgery that he had done. So he was signing me off. He wasn't going to be with him, but he was now referring me to oncology, which are the cancer specialist. So I was still being medically looked after, and he said then that you needed chemotherapy, and that's preventative, because the cancer, a minute cancer cell, could have been released and gone somewhere else and finding a home somewhere else on my lung, anywhere. So he said, really, you need 6 cycles of chemotherapy to kill any of the cancer cells that could be in your body. And they sent me then to the oncologist for 6 cycles of chemotherapy to remove any of the cancer cells that may be within my body. So you've got to do what they say, basically. That's, I couldn't do any more. So I went, okay. Like I said, Christmas and New Year came. Obviously, work, notified, colleagues, friends. I left it to the New Year, really. I just thought I need to clear my head with it because it's a couple of weeks. And then started chemo on the, I think, beginning of February, about the 5th of February, I think it was. Yeah, so I'm halfway through it. I'm okay. I mean, do you want to see my head? Should I take my cap off?
Oh, wow.
So, I know, it's gone. So the first, I know, remember my hair? Remember when you had me at work? Oh, so, of course, this is, I don't know.
How do you feel about all this?
Yes, it's, how do I feel? The first thing, Macmillan and the whole professional team, they make it very personal to you. They do. They really have spoken to the consultant and the oncologist. So that helps when you talk to them. They actually listen and they really asking you, and they really monitor you very well. I'm having bloods every time before chemotherapy. An oncologist rang me today, ready then, because I've got my 4th cycle tomorrow. That happened every time. They're ringing me, asking me. You can just run through a quick question, silly things. I just checked that body fluid, can't pass chemotherapy on because I'm kissing Catherine, or things like that. Just silly things that you think, oh gosh, anyway, so they listen to you, so that does help. How I feel, I've got my head around it now. I'm scared. I am scared. I'm scared of it being a recurrence. I'm scared because it's like a cancer thing, and I don't know. I've got family. I've got 2 beautiful children. I've got a partner. I am. It's quite scary. I want to live to 100. It's just that reality check of, gosh, your life could go, And
I mean, it's just upsetting to think that you planned obviously one thing and something completely different happened. So, for example, you've been planning to have baby Catherine for a long time.
Absolutely.
And I remember having that conversation with you, that what are your plans? And you said that you want to spend that time with baby Catherine, bring her up, etc. And just changed all of a sudden.
Gone. Yeah, absolutely. Out of my control. So I had a fantastic year with her. That was my plan, to have a lovely year, go back in the new year, January 2020, work a couple of days, let Catherine start mingling in a plate, in a nursery. Nice age for her to be toddling and walking around. Yeah, absolutely, Simon. Just gone. And even though I had the surgery and I've got a massive scar, and that was a bit like looking at my own body with this scar, and I'm like, this is going to stay with me now for my life. But okay. And the obviously the hysterectomy. I mean, I'm 48, but the actual option of being a mum to to another one, that's gone, and that was taken from that's gone. My hysterectomy, you know, and that's through surgery. So I'm like, okay, right, well, right, you know, things happen. And then when the cancer diagnosis comes, you just, so yeah, so you go through each cycle in particular, and you just do what they say. You take the steroids, you take the anti-sickness. I inject myself for bone marrow, little injections. So it's all very medically, you know, minded. My first cycle, my hair went. That was, yeah, traumatic. I remember it starting to come out, and it's not like, you know, when you brushed your hair before and a couple of bits come out. This was like the full strand. It was like the full head. Yes, it would be like your full hair, your full strand of hair. And you're like, oh, that's come from the top. You know, it's not just dead hair. And then what happened then is, because it's dying, it goes wiry. So even when you touched it and a bit fell out, but then I left it, and because you sleep, it was just going into a mat. It looked like a bird's nest on the back of my head, full of hair. Yeah, and that's how it went. So you're like, well, this is dead. So I just put Catherine to bed one night, laid with her, and just thought, enough. You know, I'd had about 4 days of it coming out. So I thought, right, I'm going to have a nice bath, get my smelling nice, and I'm feeling good. Laid there with a little towel on me, put my head back on the bath, and then just brushed it all out and just watched it all go into the bath. And I was like, right. Wow. And I came downstairs with most of it, but still very thin. And I just said to Liam, you know, shave it all off. So husband just got his clippers out.
How was your partner with all the process? How was your partner?
Well, yes, supportive, but if I'm feeling a bit poorly, because he's the one who's got to act upon it, you see. So if I feel a bit kind of tired, are you sure you're okay? You know, he's always like double checking and making sure. So it's very anxious time, very anxious, because he wants to make sure he's doing the right thing. He wants to make sure that I'm eating and drinking enough, and, you know, he's looked that way. So it's been, he went back to work. He's working, so his mind's working, and sometimes I think that helps because he can just zone out a little bit. And quite often I'm okay. Quite often I am fit, you know, okay, and feeling all right. Thankfully, I haven't been sick. I haven't been actually vomiting or actually been, you know, quite poorly with it. But you hear some ladies that just get wiped out, you know, just get shattered. So yeah, it's just a very anxious time. He is just very anxious. Yeah.
When will be your last chemotherapy?
So if I've got one tomorrow, so we're looking at then the 8th, one at the end of April, and then they're every 3 weeks. So the end of April. So then I'll be looking, I think, about the 21st of May. Yeah. Feel you don't.
Like the chemotherapy sessions, are they quite tiring, painful?
Yes. They are not painful, but this hand has still been, where I've had the last 3, has bruised, and it stayed bruised, and it's tender. So when I go tomorrow, even though I'm right-handed, I'm going to start putting the next ones in this hand, because sometimes I find it hard to find a vein. Your veins become quite weak, I think. Yeah, or they soften over time, or I'm not sure, but something happens. But I can still tender on my hand. The chemo doesn't hurt. I mean, obviously when they put the cannula in, that stings a little bit. No, I've got one bag that I sit there for 3 hours whilst it goes in, drips in. That doesn't hurt at all. That's called carboplatin, sorry. And then the other one, they put saline through you again and wash all your, you know, your veins through. And then the other one is a cold one, and you feel it go through. And that's only for an hour though. That one goes quite quick.
What advice did you want to give to others?
So my chemotherapy plan and treatment has been preventative. It's just in case there's any more cells. The actual surgery, the consultant was saying, has got most of my cancer. That's only because it's been caught so early. This is why it's so important. And my chance of beating this has shot up in the percentages, because I've only got stage 2. Now there's 4 stages to the cancer, any cancer. Now I am part of a group called Target that I also want people to hear about as well. It's quite popular anyway, and I think anybody who's just Googling ovarian cancer, Target does come up quite well, but I'd definitely recommend anybody that needs the support, Target is there as well, Target Ovarian Cancer. But you're hearing ladies that have just left it, gone on, and are now stage 3 or if not 4. And instead of their surgery happening, being successful, they're having chemotherapy first, which is very hard while they've still got the cancer in the body. So they're fighting the cancer and the chemotherapy, and it's hard work. It's very, very hard. It is really hard work. And then they're hoping then for the cancer to froze or reduce, and then the surgery. And surgery takes it out of your body as well. And then they're having chemotherapy again after. And the percentages of survival are a lot lower. So I'm begging and hoping any lady out there that just has a slightly bloated stomach, it could be IBS, my story, it could be, but just push for the ultrasound scan. Push for that, because as soon as they see anything that's going on in there, they can see the ovaries, they can see them enlarged, they can see a growth on it, they can see something in it. And also a blood test, because the blood test, it's called CA125, and that is the marker for any kind of gynecology kind of test. So it should be below 40. 40 or below is what's normal. Mine at the minute are running at 10, so I'm doing okay. Yeah. But people don't know this. When I've started and had the surgery, they were in the thousands. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that before my surgery, but I didn't know to ask neither. I know. Looking back, because when I got the diagnosis of ovarian cancer, I said, wasn't it in my blood? How come I didn't know this? It was after, only because he did biopsies. If he hadn't done the biopsy and just left it, I wouldn't have known it was even cancer. I would have just thought it would be a cyst on my ovary. And ladies have cysts. Ladies have fibroids on their ovaries, and you hear them, oh, it's just an ovarian cyst, and you're like, and we're so blasé about it, and we just leave it, and it goes on. I know I've had them. I've seen them in my scans when I was having Catherine, and they're like, oh, you've got a bit of a cyst on your ovary. I'm like, yes, it's been there, So I'm just asking any lady that your body, you really, really do. Trust yourself, and please just keep pushing that doctor, the GP. And what you do want is you want an ultrasound scan, and you want your bloods taken, and you want your CA125 markers, and you need to know that you've not got anything going on inside, because you can't see. Yeah,
that's very informative, Paula. I really appreciate that. Honestly, thank you so much. I want to wish you all the best with your recovery,